Welcome to the Cybersecurity Matters podcast. Your hosts today are me, Harry Baldwin, and Matt Rose, two members of the Nuco Cyber team, and we're delighted to be joined today by Mike McKenna, co-founder and CRO of Manifold. Mike has spent his career in AI and cybersecurity with roles at Coalfire, leading sales at Noma Security, and as part of the early go-to-market team at Protect AI. He's now building Manifold Security, an AI detection and response platform that gives companies real visibility into what autonomous AI agents are doing across their systems. Mike and the team recently raised an $8 million seed round to support Manifold's next phase of growth. Welcome to the show, Mike. And first of all, congratulations on seed raise. It's super exciting.
Hey, thanks for having me, Matt and Harry. I've been looking forward to the conversation all week.
Awesome. Brilliant. Well, so today we're going to be talking about all things you, startups, sales hiring, AI cybersecurity, Manifold, much more. But we always start the podcast with the same first question. And that is, how did you get into the cybersecurity industry in the first place?
Yeah, serendipity. I was in my mid-20s. My then girlfriend, now wife, got a cold call from a recruiter about a company called Coalfire. They were looking for a healthcare sales rep. She was a VP of product at a digital health company. So I don't know how she got on the call list, but was quick enough on her feet to say that, I'm good, but I've got a friend that's looking. Lo and behold, that was me. And I had an early manager that made one bad decision, hiring me, that I've been riding here for 15 years.
Oh,
um, I was in IT beforehand. I was kind of tangentially seeing it. We worked with a lot of small, nonprofits and small companies that had bigger priorities than security. And when I interviewed with Coalfire, it was about 100 employees, about 30 million in revenue. It was a kind of a pirate ship back then. Kind of early or mid 2010s, bunch of smart people, kind of a ragtag group of people. And I just said, this seems like smart, interesting, ambitious people solving the next big thing, get on. And stayed with them for 8 years there, kind of taking them. I had 250 customers when I started. I ended with two and saw the company grow 20-25% a year for close to a decade.
yeah. Oh, wow. That's brilliant. I mean, Coalfire had a really interesting trajectory as a business as well, and it sounds like you were a real key part of that. What were you like growing up? Were you naturally leaning towards going into something to do with sales? Was there a passion for technology, or was it really just something challenging? Like what motivated your early career choices?
Yeah. Never saw myself doing sales, candidly. Was always curious, big reader, liked kind of the new, interesting things. I thought I was going to be a doctor and was pre-med in college. I came back during one of the breaks, and I had this very much the scene like out of The Graduate, if you remember that movie. I was talking to my friend's dad who lived on the beach in San Diego, had clearly done well for himself, and was kind of talking about, oh, what are you going to do after college, all these things. And he gave me this like sales, get into sales sort of moment and pitch. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Like sales. And he introduced me to his bright friend that he'd been working with, this serial entrepreneur. And of all the salespeople I've worked with, probably the best guy I've ever seen at the art of sales. And he had an interesting business where he ran an IT security or an IT company, but his main business was actually kind of a best practices group that supported about 2,000 IT companies globally, giving them best practices, helping partnerships with them, helping them with training. So I got to work on both sides of those businesses, seeing how an individual business is run, but the strategy of a larger group of businesses. And just said again, hey, I had no interest in doing another couple of years of school and all this. Bright, interesting guy, clearly had done well for himself, and just gave it a shot. And 15 years later, here I am.
Very good. Brilliant. Well, I know Matt has got some questions about your career, so I'm going to hand over to Matt now.
Thanks, Harry, and yeah, great to meet you, Mike. It's really interesting kind of background that you've moved into, and obviously now building up Manifold. I was keen to kind of expand a little on those kind of early days, and wondered if there was anything or any person, maybe you've already alluded to, or trait that carried you in a sense as kind of a biggest influence on your success to date?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'll start with the early days. And I had kind of three managers or three mentors that I saw. The first was my first boss that I joked that made the bad decision of hiring me. And that was to kind of get me into the space. The next one I worked at, there was a manager I probably worked with longer. And me and him were almost polar opposites. Like I'm a big reader, kind of intellectual guy, and he was a kind of rah sales guy, former footballer, totally oil and water. And he had the unfortunate responsibility of a whippersnapper, me at 25 years old, thinking I knew what I was doing. But he was phenomenal. He's still probably the best people manager I've ever worked for. And his thing was about like improving your craft, getting better every day, working good internally, just continually to push and improve and drive yourself with very much these kind of internal kind of goals. So that was probably one of the most impactful kind of mentors and leaders I've had that really, really stayed with me. And then Coalfire, to give an early example, there was interesting. When I started, we were 100 people, about 30 employees, and we had a very kind of reactive sales motion. I mean, not literally, but almost just kind of pick up the phone and take the order. And we brought in this new private equity, bought the company. We brought in this sales leader. And he brought a level of rigor, discipline, ambition that I just never seen before. And we went from an average deal size of probably 30 or 40,000 to when I left, it was 300,000, and deal sizes, average bigger ones were $3-4 million. And again, like it was just that level of rigor, professionalization as the scale and the company gets business. So it was nice seeing those different, kind of sizes and stages of the business there.
And you reference some really important kind of key figures that you worked under originally. How has that shaped your approach to leadership and founding your own business now as a leader?
Yeah. It's a great question. It's one we think about here a lot because especially with the early stage of the company, it's most of it's about a good strategy or good reasonable guess, but it's a lot about the team that you build on and the company. The team builds the company, and that's still true no matter what AI is doing. So it's a good talent. It's in hiring the right people. Are they do they have a bias for action? Are they quick on their feet? Do they want to learn? Are they eager? Are they demonstrating kind of what they're that they can keep up with the space because it is moving so quickly. I think one of my big takeaways is like no one has the perfect flawless CV. Like you especially with AI security, like you're not going to find someone that has 10 years experience in AI security. So you're looking for some of those other attributes of not where they are now, but how quickly can they get up to speed and where you need them to be. So it's that flexibility, that plasticity, that eagerness, a lot of those softer skills. We're prioritizing those more than hard skills necessarily.
And from your own career journey, at what point on that journey did you decide that you wanted to build your own company?
Yeah, it's another good question. I think part of it was the formative. It was an experience at Protect AI, and that was kind of the big thing that we saw working under the CEO and founder Ian Swanson. He was a 3-time founder with 3 successful exits. Like I think generally most CEOs don't play checkers. This guy was playing 4D chess. Like it was just seeing that experience. Everything he did kind of made sense. I've just never seen it on such a big scale of such good decision making, good, consistent, rational, logical, thinking with a sense of a very dynamic space that allowed for intuitions and hunches and bets that work out. Seeing that guy and the scale that he played was just one of those eye-opening experiences. And sometimes it's about just getting into the right environment, learning from it. And then after we sold to Palo Alto, we kind of saw that there was another big jump. It was from LLMs and chatbots to agents. And my co-founders and I realized that, we had seen the playbook, we had seen kind of the master at work, so to speak. And we said, this is the time to do it, man. This is the time to take a big bet.
And it must be such an interesting perspective as a founder, because lots of people view startups through rose-tinted glasses, and it's a super exciting place to be, that's for sure. But I'm keen to kind of hear, honestly, what setting up Manifold was like in the first couple of months.
Yeah. The rose-colored glasses is a funny comment. Yeah, those don't last long. I think as terribly as exciting and interesting and engaging as it is, I think the biggest thing that really stuck with me from experience throughout my career is just how messy it can be. But if you get a couple things right and you get the big things right, it allows for a lot of small mistakes. And it's not necessarily what happens, it's how you respond to it. And if you keep iterating, you keep weaving, you keep making good sense of the space, um, you'll be just fine as long as you get the big things right. That was our big takeaway. My big takeaway from Protect, Coalfire, and other places um, is that, and I think it was an interesting journey going from basically pre-revenue to a successful exit. Of it's not where you are right now; it's the growth, it's trajectory, it's the trend line, it's what you know is going to happen in 3, 6, 9 months. And seeing that was just really good perspective. It was, kind of keeping this calm and just pointing us in the right direction, because there's invariably ups and downs. It's just the nature of the beast. There's no avoiding it.
Is there any kind of examples that have been easier or harder than you initially expected when you began the project?
I think one of the most interesting things we've had, and it's one that we knew, is just the range of opinions and perspectives that you'll get. So you'll talk to 10 different people and you'll get 10 different perspectives. Everyone's a little bit right, everyone's a little bit wrong. Everyone comes from their own situations. Sometimes their advice is what worked for them in previous situations, not what is right necessarily for you in this situation. And while you know that intellectually, it's different getting 10 different opinions about the same thing and integrating and making sense of all of those things. So that's been less harder than we realized, but just one of those things that is, it's interesting to go through. That's probably one of the short things, the big things that sticks out in the next, in the trip so far.
Yeah, fantastic. And look, loved so many of your answers there, Mike. We've got to move on to a little section about talent and recruitment. I know you spoke about it briefly. How, from a sales perspective, right? Because obviously you've been involved in lots of different kind of sales environments. How do you think about hiring sales talent generally? Like, what are the traits that you look for, and how is it different between more established businesses and maybe some startups? Like, is that a totally different profile to you? I mean, we'd imagine yes, but tell us a bit about what you look for from a hiring sales perspective.
It's just more fluid in the small scale. Like there isn't an established playbook. There isn't necessarily a giant brand behind you. There aren't different departments and people that you can pull from. It's a lot of it you doing yourself, working internally, making sense of the technology, the deal, et cetera, and then building that playbook as you go. I think for a lot of people that like the early stages, the very creative act of kind of designing, building, iterating, tweaking, like it's a ton of fun. But if you want, a place with a training department that's responsible for training you, good luck, man. Like you're responsible for doing this yourself. You're responsible for managing internally yourself, getting up to speed as quickly as you can. And that's really one of those kind of sink or swim things that some people like and some people hate. Again, no one has agent security experience. I mean, very few people have AI security experience. And even if you do, like the experience from chatbots isn't all that relevant for agent security. So we're really prioritizing, how quickly can they get up to speed? How eager are they? How quickly can they learn? Do they take the initiative themselves? That's the sort of thing that we're hiring for. Because
How do you know when it's the right time and to hire sales talent? Because I'd imagine there's always this whole thing about the co-founders being the best salespeople, right? How easy is it also to kind of let go of that and start thinking about, like, it's time to hire a team, it's time to build and enable them as well? How do you know?
Yeah, I think as the business grows, like your perspective and kind of time horizon shifts. at the very beginning, you're looking directly in front of you. And as the business grows, your pipeline grows, the deals grows, and you're starting to design for what's a quarter out or 6 months out, things along these lines. For better or worse, I mean, there's good data. So you can look at your deals, you can look at how many you have per week, you can look at all of this stuff. Some of it depends on your resources. The more money you raise, the more kind of ambitious you can be and start hiring for what's going to be here in a couple quarters. I think there is something for sure. Like, you can't just hire salespeople without getting sort of this kind of base infrastructure of what's your ICP, what's your sales process, what are the big value propositions, what are the 10 objections we get. We want to make sure when we bring salespeople on, they're going to be successful. But just hiring headcount in and of itself isn't necessarily going to do that. And yeah, I mean, people say it's one of the big transitions moving from kind of co-founder or founder-led sales to a broader, more repeatable thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's plenty of talented salespeople out there. Like, it's a matter of, can we build our environment so that they are successful? This isn't going to be somewhere a founder just does all the sales. Like, our ambitions are way too big for just me or Neal or Olex doing the selling.
Yeah, absolutely. How big a part do you expect AI to play in selling nowadays? Because there's lots of talk about lead generation and AI and how that's impacting selling. Have you seen that change a lot during your career? Because you must have been right at the early conversations about it to now, where people are talking about BDRs and AI and cold calling and all the rest of it. What's your take on all that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the bigger strategic level is like, do you do more with less or do you do more with more? And
Yeah.
it's one of those things of like, yeah, everyone just got way more efficient, way more effective. Like, why not just go bigger? It's also one of those things, like, I've worked with sales reps that maybe weren't necessarily that great, but were very persistent, very dogged, very organized. And like, you take a lot of those attributes, you could put them into a skill in a markdown file. And it kind of changes, how you, the roles and things that you hire for. It is interesting for sure. Like, AI has gotten so much easier for outbounds and cold emails and prospectings. What's more interesting is like the second and third order consequences of that. Like, when everyone now has 500 tailored emails in their inbox every day, like, what's that do to your account-based marketing strategy? Like, does everyone just go to warm referrals now because the normal channels are flooded? Those are going to play out over the next couple of years. We've seen here. I think, again, for us, as we think about it, like, we've got a tool that makes our people more effective, more efficient, more organized. It takes a lot of the drudgery and admin work off their table. And we even, we can, that's at least how we're thinking about it. But it is one of those things where we're definitely dog fooding and looking to see how much better we can get as we use Cloud Code and Codex and all of those skills internally.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I'm interested to see how it affects the job market as well. Like, we've had loads of conversation with founders where sellers need to be sure of how to use AI to make their processes better, and to kind of modernize and learn on that side of things as well. So no, it's very interesting. You could definitely do a whole nother podcast on it. But we need to talk about our topic that matters, which is a little bit about the AI cybersecurity market and more specifically about Manifold's place in all of that. I mean, first off, there's been loads of commentary about the AI cybersecurity market. Like, we are both at RSA. It feels like I'd hope it's gone past when companies are just slapping AI at the beginning of their tagline and hoping for the best. It feels like it's developed a bit from there. I don't know. What's your take? How do you view the AI cybersecurity market specifically, kind of at this point in time?
There's tons of noise. I mean, it is disorienting for any sort of buyer out there. Every single company has AI, security, agents, and the combinations of those three words on their websites and products. It's a really confusing space. Tons of noise out there for it, for sure. I think we're still in the early innings of AI and AI security. Like, it's just going to get bigger from here. And I think as companies operate and implement some of these kind of first generation technologies and controls, they're going to understand, again, how these things work, not just in theory, but in practice. And we'll see how that shakes out here.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. You've kind of spoken about the first generation and second generation AI security companies. Like, what do you view as the difference between the two? Is one kind of just using the tagline and the other solving an actual problem? Like, and how do you expect it to develop generally as a space?
Yeah. So I think first generation really were built around LLMs and chatbots, and they fit pretty nicely into everyone's existing mental model. So you could add a firewall between a chatbot, you could red team a chatbot, you could understand the asset or the artifact that underpin that and look for its specific vulnerabilities. I think they were built broadly for the LLM, and they're almost built all around the assumption that you could classify what the model or what the chatbot says. Essentially, you could try to look for malicious things, prompt injections, jailbreaks, and whatnot. I think that underpins a lot of that kind of first generation. We've seen a lot of them kind of uplift a little bit for agents. Instead of a firewall, they became a gateway, started doing some auth checks, things along those lines. They're still built around the assumption that you can classify, natural language or classify English and reliably say what is malicious versus not. Um, Again, our experience is that is a very, very hard space to solve. And prompt injection sounds like a technical thing, but it's actually more broadly just like malicious storytelling is another way to say it. And there's no solving malicious storytelling. Like, hackers are endlessly creative. You can always come up with different scenarios that you can't reliably tell are or are not nefarious. So for one, it's just too broad, the number of, again, kind of malicious scenarios you could dream up. It's also too narrow because like it's really built around this model of like there's an external adversary that's coming after you. And what we found probably is more common is just the model or now the agent just unintentionally goes off the rails. And it's usually towards the goal of its intended purpose. These models have gotten so capable that they're able to go around the controls, around the sound boxes, around all these well-intentioned security controls to accomplish the goal that they were directed towards. And I think that version 2 companies like Manifold and others kind of are built around that much more complicated, complex reality. Less simple static controls and more built around for the dynamism of agents here.
It sounds like it's a kind of a change of thinking, really, actually. And a change of mindset. It's really interesting. And when you think about Manifold, tell us about what you guys do, what problems you solve, and where you fit into the ever expanding, terrifyingly big cybersecurity industry.
Yeah. So we're going after the agentic endpoint. And in our opinion, we're solving the highest priority, biggest risk, which is kind of the developers using Cloud Code, Codex, all these agents. They are just a harbinger of things to come. Developers are the first adopters, but they're not the only adopters. We're seeing just kind of knowledge work more broadly start to change. And what we've seen is, overnight, seemingly, a brand new infrastructure and technology has been spun up. It's got a brand new set of threats. It's connected to increasingly the crown jewels of an organization, code repositories, systems of records, all of these things, cloud environments, and existing security controls and assumptions weren't baked for that. And unsurprisingly, don't necessarily work all that well for it. So that's the problem that we're solving. The interesting thing is most of our companies or most of our early design partners, as mature and sophisticated as they are still on day zero sort of questions. What agents do we have? What are they made of? What are they connected to? And what are they actually doing? We're solving those sorts of questions. Again, building the foundations of an AI security program. And I think longer term, it's really going to get to really advanced threat detection is going to be the differentiator. You can get these guys and get these agents reasonably configured, but these are radically uncertain systems, or they're radically dynamic. You can't infer their design or their activities from their design. So there's always going to be a big part of monitoring what they actually do and looking for malicious or unintentionally adversarial effects.
Do you think these problems and challenges like disproportionately affect the largest of enterprises, or do you think it's something that you're seeing, this AI security issue affecting, mid-market and SMB customers? How big do you see the problem today, and where do you expect it going?
Oh, yeah, it's a good question. I think it affects anyone that's using agents. The interesting and the exciting thing is we zoom a couple years out, that's going to be almost every company. We're still in the early innings. It's the bleeding edge that we're dealing with here, both in terms of like enterprise software that view this as this kind of existential threat. If their developers aren't using Claude Code, they're going to lose out this, their competitor that is. Same thing with building agents into products, and this like AI native startup as well. But most companies have become tech companies, or have tech is a large part of this. Like retailers, grocery stores, all of these companies are using Claude Code, and the equivalents here. So the market's about as big as you can get.
Yeah, no, it's exciting to see where it's going to go. Where do you expect it all to be in the next few years? Where do you think will be the next generation or next problems that come up, and what do you think they're going to look like? I know you don't have a crystal ball, right? But from what you think and what you've heard.
It's a great question. I mean, I think I've got high confidence that a lot's going to change. I mean, and that's the interesting part is I've never seen the corporate chessboard this in flux. We've never seen technology this in flux. Anyone that has a precise guess of what's going to happen, I tend to disbelieve. So I think lots are going to happen. I have struggled, to say more than that. Other than from my perspective, we're still in the early innings. Like this thing is just getting started. Yeah, so I'll be curious.
Mike, how would you? I mean, there's been obviously AI has dominated the narrative for a couple of years now, and even more so, it seems, into the future. There's also been a lot of talk on the other side of things that there is an AI bubble. I'm curious to hear how you would reassure someone that it's not an AI bubble, or if you think that there is maybe partially an AI bubble out there, that Manifold would not be part of that.
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, I would defer to far smarter, more educated people than me to answer it. I would just say that like the technology is real. It's working. I mean, we're obviously still early, but you look at what it can do, and what it's coming a couple quarters out here. It's here. It's not the unused dark fiber of the early or late 1990s. Like the struggle seems to be keeping up with the demand, not just some aspirational PowerPoint slide. So from that perspective, at least that data point, we see it taking off. I'll defer to the bubble and all of that stuff to far smarter people, though.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, everyone's using it, right? Everyone's always talking about it. It feels like it's definitely here to stay, and lots of businesses are talking about the impact they're actually making to their customers by using it. So it's exciting. It's exciting. I mean, Mike, we will have to wrap up onto our final question now, and that is, what one piece of advice would you give to someone entering the industry?
Yeah, my dumb answer is to enter the industry. Like again, it's in the early stages. It's just taken off. We're going to be doing this for decades to come. You're a couple months or a couple quarters away from being at the bleeding edge and knowing just as much as everyone else. You're looking for the next big thing. This is it. Get in.
Yeah, it's inspirational stuff. I mean, I think it can feel like a difficult industry to get in because it feels so big, but like I love how you just went for it with your with the mentor that advised you to enter the space, and that's enabled you to be where you are today. So thank you very much for joining us, Mike. Really enjoyed having you on. Super excited for what's to come for Manifold. So all listeners, do keep an eye on the great work they're doing, and yeah, thank you so much for having us on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Enjoyed the conversation.